Wyclef Jean, BKS1 Radio. Let's go.
This is Essence Atkins, and this is BKS1 Radio.
Hi, this is Nova Moore, and you're listening to BKS1 Radio.
Yo, check it out. What's the deal? This the chef. Giving a big shout out to my peoples. Big KS, you already know what it is. Salute.
What's up? It's your girl Monifa, and I'm hanging with BKS1 Radio.
Hi, I'm Iyanla Van Zandt, and you're listening to BKS1 Radio.
BKS Radio, baby.
Hey, this is Jasmine Guy for BKS1 Radio.
What's going on? This is Lamont Rooker, and this is BKS1 Radio.
Shout out to BKS1, the best kept damn secret in the business.
Hey, what's up? This is Raven Goodwin from BET's Being Mary Jane, and shout out to BKS1.
Hi, this is Leon, and you're watching BKS1 Radio.
BKS1. God bless y'all.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Owl Show. It is your girl Latoya Chanel, and I am blessed to be back here once again this week to have a wonderful conversation with you, get to know you a little better, get to keep going on this healing journey, get to keep sharing where I am in my healing journey with you all, and hopefully get some feedback from all of you as where you are on your healing journey. Right now, we are talking about relationships. Why do we always talk about relationships on this show? I'm glad you asked. Because for most people, while healing, you don't tend to notice a lot of your issues until you come in contact with somebody else, right? And a lot of times it's not even our family members. A lot of times it's when we are in relationships, sometimes the mirror is put in front of us, right? And we kind of realize what some of our issues are, what are some certain things we need to work on, or, what are some times where we didn't know that this was really affecting us as much as it really is. There's PTSD, there's all kinds of things that we don't notice sometimes until we have a partner. So that romantic relationship a lot of times becomes the catalyst that will send us on a healing journey, or lack thereof. A lot of times after breakups, people are trying to recenter, refocus, refine themselves, or for a lot of, I'm going to say women, refigure out who it is that they are. Maybe they never figured out who they were without a partner, and some men too. They never knew who they were without a partner, right? And so now they're trying to figure it out. So relationships are definitely part of the healing journey, and that's why we talk about it so much here on the show. We are getting questions in as we speak. As I said to you all last week, please continue to send your questions, because we are going to have Coach Trev, who is going to be on the show with us. He's been on, this will be his third week. We are blessed to continue to be able to have him back on the show, giving his expertise, thoughts, and opinions on different situations. So I'm excited right now. And you know what we'll do? It's 7:04, and I don't want to waste any more time, because we always get to the end of the show, and I always wish I had an additional 10 minutes or so. So without further ado, please help me to welcome Coach Trev to the virtual studio tonight. Hey, Trev!
What's up? Excuse me. How you doing?
I am well. How are you this evening?
Better than good. Thanks for having me again.
Better than good is great. So that's absolutely amazing. So we're back. I want to get right into it. We had an amazing time last week. We had some people who called in last week to ask a couple of questions. And then we had people that had sent questions ahead of time. And I think we went through about half, right? Probably. I think it was about half from what I had sent to you. So we got through half the questions. We still have more that were coming in, and we still have some that we did not get a chance to address. So I want to go ahead and just start off tonight with that. Are you good with that?
Sure.
All right. So let's get into it. All right. First question. What's up, Dre? So Dre is watching. You know what, Dre? I'm going to start with you. We're going to do with the fellas first, because it always seems like so many women have questions about love and relationships, and when am I going to meet somebody? When am I going to get married? Is that just a female thing? I'm not sure, but it's great when men are actually concerned about this area of their life. They're not taking it for granted. They are taking it seriously. They're not just sitting back waiting for something to come, but they have questions and concerns about this as well. So, you ready, Trev?
I am.
Question number 1 for tonight from a fella.
Okay.
Why do women choose their children over their mate? Yeah, this is a two-part question, and it's why do women choose their children over their mate? How does that make sense?
Well,
You gotta talk up, Trev. I gotta make sure I
can
can
you hear
hear
me?
you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you
Okay.
get a little louder?
Yeah, I can get a little bit louder. Can you hear me?
Yep, keep getting louder.
I keep getting louder,
Uh-huh.
louder. All right, I got it. So I'm gonna speak from an opinions from my opinion, not necessarily from what I've drawn from interviewing people and coaching people. Just being in the household with my wife and my small children, I just think that's honestly the way nature has it. And because I look at how I raise my children, how my wife and I connect, and we are this tag team. But no matter what I try to do, the bulk of that energy and that work falls on my wife.
Mm.
And so I think just like any project that you are tied to, maybe you have a project at work, or maybe you have a passion, a business that you started. When you're fully invested in that thing, whatever it is, it's hard to let go. I have several businesses that I've run over the past, and there's no way to be successful at it unless I put my all into it. And the things that I didn't put my all into, I noticed the difference in, let's just say, revenue. But when you talk about a mother and her children, and I know we had a call last week, a caller call in last week, and she was asking how to balance, her children and her
Yeah.
husband, and
Yeah.
she's tormented with this. You kind of torn between how to do that.
Yeah.
And just from a male perspective, I'm gonna get to how we really feel, but initially, if if they're your children, you kind of want your wife to take on that mentality to a degree, because your children need a certain amount of energy in order to get them to the point where they're successful adults. And that's
Mhm.
not something that you can give half your energy to. You either go all in, or you're going to end up with children that will stray. And when I say stray, I mean maybe not live up to their full potential because you didn't pour into them. And so, as a father and a husband, I understand that there's a certain level of energy I am not going to get because I have to split it with my children. Now,
Mhm.
I do understand, just being a man in a world where there's, I'm gonna speak for some, a large portion of men, not all, but there's
Mhm.
tons of women, so to not get that attention at home because she's all tied up into these children who are one day going to leave the house and not, they're going to care about you, but it's your man that's going to
Yeah,
still
they're
be
gonna have their own lives.
they're going to have their own lives. So
Mhm.
it is important for women to understand that. And I talked about how in a week there's in an entire week, I think there's about 10,000 minutes or something like that. I think it was. And or if you're not able to give, you know 3 hours or 6 hours of personal time to your spouse, in essence, you're saying, I don't want to give 1% of my week, because that's what 3 hours would represent. I'm not willing to give 3 hours or 1% of my week to this person that I claim that I love. So, for a women's perspective, it is a tough balance, but it is a balance that you have to make in order to have a relationship that will last until you're dead. So, but from the male perspective, you kind of have to, you do have to express to that person, that woman, that you need that attention, but you almost can't fight that energy, man. Like
Mm.
it's almost like a woman coming to a traditional man who's trying to put food on the table. He's hustling, he's got this business, he's working hard, and she's like mad at you because you can't find the time to spend with her. But in your mind, you're saying, but wait a minute, you want to go on vacation, right? You want me to pay this mortgage, right? You want me to take you on date nights, right? Well, I have to work in order to provide that. So in essence, your work is your baby. Now,
Mm.
would you want her to come to you and say, well, you're spending too much time with that baby or your business or your hustle or your grind, whatever it is, or even your let's say it's your sports, whatever it is, your hobby. But what if she had that same uh, energy toward you? You would kind of say, well, yeah, I understand. Maybe I need to balance. But in essence, there's no way you're going to be able to turn that off because it's your passion or it's your purpose or it's your hustle. So this is the tough part of relationships. A lot of people who end up divorced, a lot of people are still in love through the divorce proceedings. It's
Mm.
not that they don't love each other; they just never learned how to live with each other. So this is an ongoing conversation. This is a good question, but it is a very layered question. Obviously, it's specific to each person. But
Mhm.
again, look at that woman and her children the way you look at yourself and your passion, whether it be sports or whether it be your business or your hustle, whatever it is. You want to be able to balance it, but there's no way you're going to completely let go of it because it's just a part of who you are. And as a mother, obviously I lack experience in that, but just being around enough mothers and having a wife right now currently who's helping me raise our children, it's hard to get them to split that. But both of you have to understand, and you have to get to this mentality. And this is the last thing I'll say on this. You have to understand that there's a certain amount of time in a week, there's a certain amount of time in a month. And if you can't find a way to give 5 or 10% of your week to this person that you claim you love, you can't be shocked that that person no longer wants to be with you 4 years from now, or they feel like their needs are not being met 2 years from now. The
Mhm.
best way to affair proof your marriage or your relationship is to find that person's needs and meet it. So if you're expressing that your need is to get more attention, it's their job to pay attention to that. And it's not your job to say, hey, I told you my need and beat them up about it, but you have to be
Yeah.
patient, but also express clearly that this is a need for you, not a want. And hopefully that woman, or in other case, that man will understand that, what, this person is not asking me for anything that is not going to benefit our relationship. I mean, you got to really think about it. This person is asking for more of my time and energy. So if
Mhm.
that's a burden for you, then maybe your relationship is not something you should be in.
Okay, so that was part one of his what part one of his question was about children. Part two was about friends. Why is it that some women are choosing their friends over their mate? Your
I can't
thought.
really speak on that. But I will
I
say this.
can.
I will say this though, and I
Mhm.
do want to hear what you have to say on this.
Mhm.
I'm not for that.
Mhm.
If we're in a relationship, I do want you to be with your friends, and I think it's important to have your time alone because it actually fuels the flame when you are together. I'm not talking about weeks apart or long distance relationships, which I'm not necessarily opposed of, but I'm not a fan of. But if we're in a relationship and you're choosing, and again, this goes for men and women, but if you're choosing to spend more time with your friends than me, listen, there's another woman that is more than willing to spend time with me, and it's not I'm not willing to sacrifice my need of attention from you because you want to spend time with your friends. Now I can understand if I'm asking for something that's far fetched, maybe I'm asking you to do wild things or something that's far out of the realm of being in a happy relationship. But if we're agreeing to be together and building something long term, you're gonna have to give me a certain amount of attention, and I'm willing to sacrifice some of that attention for my children. But
Mhm.
for friends, as long as it's not excessive and I'm not feeling neglected, it's okay. But the minute it starts to get to the now, here's another thing: you can't be insecure and then pour that insecurity on someone and say, oh, well, you're spending too much time with your friends. Like, dude, she went out with them like once a month. Like, you got to stop it.
Yeah.
But if you're realistic about it and this person is always with their friends and not spending time with you, that can become an issue. And for me, I'm just admitting to you that would
Mhm.
be an issue for me. But luckily, my wife and I, we definitely have groups of friends that we hang out with. But we agree. We agreed since day one, and so I know for a fact I'll never have to deal with that issue. I'm
Yeah.
speaking that into existence. I'll never have to deal with that issue. But
Yeah.
again, we established that when we first started dating.
Yeah. So for me, just speaking from a woman's standpoint, my friends are essential. And I'm at a point in my life that whoever I end up with is going to have to know that my girlfriends are essential, not only to me, but they're going to be essential to this relationship that I'm in too. And here's why. Because if there's ever a time period where you don't understand something that I'm saying, or maybe I'm not being clear, or maybe we're just having some sort of breakdown in our dialogue, then maybe you can get someone else who knows me that maybe can explain. And of course that should not be an all the time thing, but I don't have the type of friendships that are yes man friendships where it's me and B laugh all the time. There's a meme that's like, girl, we gonna you ain't wrong, girl, each other to death. You know what I mean? We don't have that kind of friendship where we're just sitting here co-signing each other's BS. You know what I mean? Whether it's in a relationship or not. I'd be like, girl, well, what did you say? Well, what did you do? Because that sound, you can't say that, or you can't talk to them like that, or you can't do that. Or there are time periods where I'll run something past my friend, not because I know me. And so if I have a history of being harsh, if I have a history of coming across incorrectly, if I have a history of not doing something right, or being insensitive, or being hard. For instance, I have a history of, just full transparency, of being harsh, not as soft as I could be in a relationship. So I'll just be like, you know what? I don't think that was and there's times when B has been like, girl, you're not doing this right, sis. Like you're not going about that the right way. And I'm like, what? This is the truth. This is what it is. And she'll be like, no, sis, you need to be a little softer in your approach. So there are time periods where I'll call her before saying something and be like, all right, if I say it like this, does that come across harsh, or does it not? So my friendships are uber important to my relationship. I had a situation one time in my previous relationship where my drive time in the morning is either with me spent talking to God. I pretend God is my passenger, and I just go all in, all right, God, I didn't like this, or this is happening, I'm not comfortable with that. You know what I mean? Or that is my powwow time. That is my bouncing off ideas and different things time that I would do with my girls. And it's literally always been that way. And I do it on the way into work, so that while I'm at work, if there was something career-wise that was going on, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is from this perspective, blah, 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 blah. By the time I had gotten into a relationship, he would try to call me in the morning during that time. And I was like, ooh, okay, so this is kind of a thing that I do. And I had to explain it, like, I will carve out time for you. I will either carve out time for you when I first get in the car, or I'll carve out time for you because I have a bit of a ride, or I'll carve out time for you on the back end of things. But this is time that I need for me. And this is time that helps to build me. And then eventually in the relationship, there's going to be times where there's going to be conversations that I'm going to have with my mate that's also going to contribute to that. It just so happens that at this point in time in my life, this is what it is. And we would literally get into arguments because he decided every morning that he was still going to call me at that time, and that our conversations, which were pretty much arguments, were more important than the time that I was using to pour into me, or the time that I needed to clear my head on things. And so it got to a point where I had to just be like, listen, you keep calling me at this time, I'm not going to answer the phone. We have our time, but our time is not that time. So it got really ugly for a minute. And then as the years went on, it was just like, all right, whatever. This is her 30 minutes that she does this. But that's literally what it was. Now, obviously, if there's something important going on, if there's something going on in a house or kids or family or this, that, or the other, I'm clicking over. Hey, is everything okay? I would never not answer. But you calling me to argue at that particular time, or you calling me to you just want me to be on the phone while you're at work already, and it's like, well, I kind of do this thing, you know what I mean? You kind of got to respect that time. So again, my point is, my friends were important in that regard. Now, should you ever be spending more time with anybody else over your mate? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I 100% agree with you. But sometimes things are designated time for that woman. So let me just read a comment real quick. Aisha, hey girl, said, do men ever think that maybe she's devoting more time to her friends because they've proven to be intentional about caring for her? Ouch. How safe and protected does she feel with you and in your relationship? Ooh. Oh, okay. Andre then said, your friends don't live with you. They don't pay bills with you. So that's easy. I always said a relationship that y'all live separate, no kids, should be smooth.
It should be. So I had a comment. I'm always going to be the one to challenge statements or ways of thinking, but there's no right or wrong. It really is up to, and I always think of analogies for sports, but it's up to the person. So the decision you made in that scenario is almost like you saying this is like a non-negotiable for me. And as long as you are okay with this relationship ending on that, then I'm okay with you sticking to that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not okay with the relationship and like if it's that important to you, like that time frame, because I can imagine the arguments that would start if a woman, not any woman, but I'm just thinking of a relationship of mine in the past or something. If she's here she is trying to reach out to me to spend time with me, and I'm just like, now let me I talk to my boy every morning. I could think of one particular relationship where that would have been an issue, and I can understand why it's an issue, because just like one of those comments that just came by, I can't remember exactly what the gentleman said, or the young lady said, but it's like, I want to be that person that you confide in. I want to be that person that you bounce ideas off of. And if not, then it's almost like now this is not me speaking, but I can almost imagine how some men would think, and I'm not mad at it. It's almost like my confidence is shaken by you choosing to talk to this person versus me, when I'm, here I am trying to present myself as that. So from your perspective, again, and this is any relationship, so it's not just this scenario, because I have my own non-negotiables. My wife had her own as well, and we agreed upon them, and we're fine with that. But if you stand with your guns, if it's part of your love blueprint or who you are as a person, as long as, listen, you draw that line in the sand, like, listen, if you're not okay with this, I'm okay with the relationship ending. And even my wife and I've had that point very early on, where it's like, well, these are the things I need. And, listen, I'm okay. As much as I think this is a great connection, if this doesn't work, I'm okay with moving on.
Yeah.
And if you stand on that, then you should stand on that. But if you want this relationship to work, there are going to be some things that you have to try to move around. And so in this case, maybe he wasn't the guy that you felt like you can confide in. So you didn't feel like relieving the duties of your best friend to him, because he didn't prove that he was capable of sitting in that seat. And I can understand that as well, just like that young lady's comment was. So
yeah,
it's a tough balance.
I think it's more about perspective. I think even for us as individuals and in relationships, you have your people that you talk to about different things, and of course you should be talking to your partner about all things. And so if that particular time period in the morning was set aside for that, and then I am literally talking to you throughout the rest of the entire day, so throughout the workday, when we come home, laying in the bed at night, sometimes in the middle of the night, we are talking to each other. So it's not that I'm not sharing things with you. It's just that I think in that particular relationship, it was the fact that I had set that boundary. It was like, well, now I'm determined to break it. Um, and it was just like, well, you know what? You set a boundary that you have 30 minutes between 8 o'clock and 8:30. So you know what? Now I have to be a part of that time between 8 o'clock and 8:30. I don't care what you're talking about. I don't care what it is. It's just the fact that you set a boundary. We can sit on the phone in complete silence, but you set that boundary. So now I need to break it. And again, like I said, it's not that it wouldn't be brought up later on, or it would not be talked about, you know, with my partner. It's just that that's the time period that I would talk to my friends. And then I would have my partner, and then it, at this particular age, 40 plus, you get through life with the people that you're getting through life with. So it's like you come in, and this is like an all-inclusive thing now. At this point, it's like, okay, I have these people for this, I have this people for that. My mate comes in, yes, that is my number one, but I am not pushing everyone else out because I am now in a relationship. That's just my opinion. Those are my thoughts. Let me get another one here. Go ahead, Trev.
I was gonna say, when I talk to people about establishing, especially when they're single and they're looking for love, I challenge people, like the statements, the conversation we're having right now. I just continually challenge you until you get to the point where you say, no, Trev, this is it. Like, this is really a part of
No, that's
me.
it.
It helps build me to who I am now. And this is part of you making your love blueprint. Like, this is you being stern on this is part of you attracting somebody that will actually fall in line with that. Because guess what? They'll probably have their own thing to do at that time in the morning where they're not even concerned with calling you anyway. So, but
Yeah.
again, this is part of being very clear on what you want. So I'm not mad at that at all.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. She said, what did she say? Another thing to consider is some people give relationships their all until they don't feel valued, respected, or loved. Also, some people cling to friends because they've poured into too many people that failed them where their friends have not. He says, I agree, but understand why your friends never fail you. It's because they don't have the responsibility of your husband or your boyfriend. It's a different dynamic. So I mean, I agree with everything that everyone's saying. You know, and I agree with what you're saying. For me, that was a as it doesn't seem that it was important for me, that was a deal breaker.
No, that's it.
That was a deal
You have
breaker.
to have them. And if that's yours, there's no one to judge you on that. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that, if that's your deal breaker,
Yeah.
again, it doesn't mean that it's going to exclude you from finding love or anyone in that position from finding love. It actually will help you find love more efficiently because you're clear on what you want and what you don't want. It's the
Right.
people who are not clear on what they want or what they will stand for or what they can't live without that have trouble finding love. It's the people with clarity that really find love. So I'm again, it's just one of your boundaries. I can list mine. You might laugh at mine. Like, really, you needed that to be? Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't.
that one was that one was one of my boundaries. Like I said, the same way prayer is my thing in the morning. So it was a long story short, and then we'll just go into another question, but it was another thing. I pray in the shower. I pray in the shower, I pray in my car. So there were time periods where I was in relationships and people wanted to come in the shower, use the bathroom, and talk to me throughout the entire time. And I'm sitting there like, so I hear you. I do. I really hear you. But just yeah, can I hear you when I come out? Or can we, you know what I mean? Like, but these are all things that I have come to build up within myself. These are my little things that I do. And again, some things for me are just completely non-negotiable. I mean, this is a part of what I feel makes me a better version of myself or contributes to any successes that I've had or being the best version of myself. So, and it might be small to a lot of people, but you know, that was it for me. So that I feel like that's why sometimes women may choose friends, but you are absolutely right. You are not supposed to be spending more time out with your friends, doing a bunch of stuff, confiding in them more, and all of that. If you're in a healthy relationship, again, as Aisha mentioned, if you're not, then it is what it is.
I was gonna say that I feel that statement of you've we talked about it on that post today where you're so afraid of getting beat up that you don't want to move. You're afraid to move or do something different because you've tried already and people have let you down and your friends haven't let you down. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy to just pass that baton off to the next person unless they truly deserve it. But again, here's the only challenge with that is if you're not that person you may never find out if that person is worthy of passing that baton if they never get the baton. So if
Mm-hmm.
if you're never in a position because if you're never in a position where you're willing to confide or give them that attention, you'll never know if they deserve it. And in essence, you choose your friend over that relationship in some
Mm-hmm.
cases. And again, this is not just about in the car or in the shower. I laughed about the shower. I was like, what if he tries to have little, playtime in the shower and you're praying? That's just bad. Dude, I'm in the middle of amen. Here you come. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Right. No, but I get it. I get it. But again, these are all things that you talk about when you're getting into a relationship with somebody and you're like, okay, listen, these are my quirks. This is what I do. This is that, So okay. So another question we got is why do people not heal their traumas but instead put them on their mate?
Yeah, when I saw that question, the first statement that came to mind is, why don't people wait until they have money before they charge their credit card? You know, many people like to put things off until later. I haven't healed yet, but I'll deal with that later. I'll get to that later, and then the next charge comes up. Oh, I got to get that thing. I'll deal with that later. The other thing is many people don't even know that they're dealing with trauma. It's easy to say go get help, but you don't know if you need help in many cases. Many people don't self-reflect. And again, this is part of your morning drive that you're talking about. Many people don't get a chance to they only hear their own opinion, which is only going to be a yes man in your ear. Where if you have somebody outside of you or you're seeking therapy or have a coach or something like that that you can actually discover where your setbacks are, where your blind spots are, and we all have them. There's not one person on this earth that doesn't have a blind spot. And so I believe two things. I believe just like credit cards, people like to put things off until later. Like they like to deal with the hard things later because they feel like they have time. And one thing I've recognized is, just losing some close family members is that, you don't have time. You only have right now.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest things, and it's a very cool analogy, but there's so many things you can do to make this happen. When someone comes to you as for a relationship or you interact with somebody, you want to be move-in ready. You want you if you're considering yourself a home, you want to be move-in ready where the person they don't have to you don't have to have this trauma or these setbacks or this fear because this other person hurt you. And a lot of people get into a relationship and because they're holding back, the relationship doesn't work out and they don't even realize that that relationship might have flourished if they weren't holding back. But now all they see is, oh, it just didn't work out, this person was a jerk. No, you never gave your all. If
Yeah.
you gave your all, that relationship would have flourished, but you don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a very tough one. I don't think it's just a part of kind of how people naturally behave, but
Yeah.
if you're the person that caused the trauma, that's different. But if you're going into a new relationship and they're dealing with something that came from the past, I mean, again, you don't have this. I'll clear up one thing, and it's all about your perception. It's all about how you think. There's more than one house on the market, and a lot of times, I know I talked to a lot of especially recently, a lot of women who feel like there's not a lot of options. And if you think that way, it's guaranteed that there's not going to be a lot of options. When my wife and I were looking for a home or looking for our second home, the fact because we put it out there that we wanted this house. I remember we saw one house. It was like we saw the pictures. We were like, damn, this is it. Without even going to the house, we were like, man, this is it. as soon as we went to go visit, it was off the market, and we were like, man, like we're not gonna find another house like that. And I remember
Mhm.
saying like, nah, there's gonna be something else like that. And like a week or so later, we found this house, which was better. And so
Mhm.
again, because our mindset was that of, nah, we're gonna find what we're looking for.
Yeah.
It's almost like our brain found the Zillow ads, and we go to the supermarket, and all of a sudden you see the magazines with the house on the market in your neighborhood. So again, it's really about how you view things. But a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people hear, you are what you think about, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
How you think about things really does affect whether they happen or how they line up in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the weeks, so when you came on the first week, and then we had a week where we were just discussing some things back and forth, and I was discussing, with everybody that was in a chat here, and we started asking the question, should you be healed before getting in a relationship, or is it possible for healing to occur throughout a relationship? And we had asked the question the week before with you on, and we discussed it more afterwards. And I feel like the conclusion that we all came to is that there is only a certain amount. It's the same thing with us growing and evolving as people, right? So there's only a certain amount of healing that you can do on your own, right? And so, of course, if there's some traumas, and like you said, most people are unaware of their traumas, their PTSD, their quirks, most people are completely unaware. So there's only a certain amount of trauma that you will actively work on, that you are actually aware of, right? And so now, if I've dealt with anger management issues my entire life, okay, then maybe you probably should have worked on that before we got into this relationship, if that is something and that you're aware of.
Yeah.
So it's being aware means that maybe this is something that you could have worked on. But there are a lot of things, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there are a lot of things that people don't even know about themselves. I didn't know that I react this way when you put the pots over to the left instead of the right. I didn't know that I do this every time you drive, or every time I drive, or you know what I mean? I didn't know that I have these actions. And a lot of times, especially when you're alone and you're in your own world, there's no one to point things out for you. There's nothing to, try to balance something up against. So a lot of times there are things that you can't work on until there's someone else in your circle or someone else in your sphere that is bringing it to your attention. Because of course, when we're alone, most of the time we think everything that we're doing is right, because who's your checks and balance system? It's
Right.
just us. You
Right.
know what I mean? So it's not until we bring others into our circle that we can begin to work on certain things where healing is necessary. So I think it's not necessarily that people get into relationships and want to put everything on other people. I think that there are, in some cases, there are things that people don't know that they're dealing with, don't know that they're struggling with, don't know that this is a problem, or that they have this. So then, it's up to your partner to be like, hey, do you know that you get very angry when we do this, or very sad when we do this, or and it's like, do I? And then it's like, okay, let's work on that. But again, if you're aware of certain things and you have had this issue before in a previous relationship, and everybody has been telling you that you do a certain thing or you act a certain way, then then it is up to you to work on that before you get into another relationship, because that's not fair.
So I won't go into detail. I actually do go into detail when I do my course, because I don't want to on a public platform kind of go with talk about my wife and I specifically on certain things. But when we were first dating, I remember her, and this is part of healing while you're in a relationship, because there was a lot of things, and I talk about this in my book. I took courses, I was doing therapy. So a lot of things brought me to the point where I am now as a coach, and have all these testimonials and the book and all that stuff. But I remember I would say I was move-in ready. But one of the things I was doing was, early on, I remember mentioning to my wife different things that bothered me from a past relationship. And I was only doing it because I was from the almost arrogant, but I would say confident standpoint of like, listen, this is what I don't like, and I'm letting you know. And I remember my wife one day kind of telling me like, listen, I'm not her. And again, it was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was bringing this up. I didn't realize it. Now, yes, bringing it up is part of what made me put context around it and become healed.
Yeah.
But bringing it up to my current girlfriend didn't make sense. And I
Yeah.
remember her saying, I'm not her. And from that day forth, I didn't bring it up. But I didn't, I wouldn't have recognized. I probably would have went on to, I might have said it to every girl I was dating at the time, thinking that I was weeding people out. But in essence, she kind of was saying, well, listen, like I haven't demonstrated any of those things that you're talking about. So why do you keep bringing it up?
Yeah.
And so, not to go into too much detail, and I will at some point, you'll definitely hear it for sure. But
Yeah.
man, like I remember her saying that, and I was like, yo, I wouldn't have got that if I didn't have her, somebody that I was already looking at in a positive light to say, you realize that you're saying this often, right? Like there's no reason for you to do that. And it's just like, wow. And even my wife, again, I'm not going to share her business. She'll probably share this with you specifically. But there was things that she was insecure about. And I remember kind of telling her, like, yo, I don't even notice them things. Like, I adore it, you know what I mean? And then you look at her now and just like, it's like the farthest thing from her mind, things that she's dealt with her whole life.
Yeah.
Just me saying, yo, I don't even care about that. It was just like a weight was lifted off of her shoulder. But
Yeah.
again, we didn't go into a relationship to heal each other. We were definitely, I would say, on our own journey to heal ourselves before we started dating each other. But it was these two little things that I can think of specifically, and again, I'll mention them to you later. But it was just like wow, like just one person saying something one time, maybe two times. It was just like you almost took a weight off of my shoulder. Here I am thinking about it all the time. Again, you think of what you think about, you attract, right?
Yeah.
So me talking about this is like almost like my wife was almost kind of like, do you want me to do these things? Because you keep bringing them up. And it was like, yeah, you're right. Never again. 12 years later, I still haven't mentioned it. So
Yeah.
I do think there's a level of healing if the two of the right people come together at the right time. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Um, Aisha was saying that's true. Some people don't know, but know, and some don't take accountability. Some would rather blame than grow. But like you were saying, you recognized what was going on, and you just didn't bring it up again. Like, okay, wait a minute, this is something I'm doing. I need to stop it. That's it. Let's move on from here.
I didn't have any logical reason to keep explaining it. If she had given me some signs that she was doing what these past relationships were doing that I didn't like, it would make
Mm-hmm.
sense to me to bring it up. But I'm a logical person. And
Mm-hmm.
her breaking it down logically, again, ladies, sometimes if you're talking to a man, talking about feelings may not hit him as hard as you breaking it down logically. Like, does this make sense? And when she put it that way, it was just like, it doesn't. It really
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. And being a logical person, I would be stupid to continue doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So one of the next questions was about, this ever growing topic on masculinity and femininity that has been across radio shows and podcasts everywhere. But one of the young ladies wrote in and she asked, why is it that most men are thinking that a lot of women are masculine nowadays?
I mean, that's a very deep
It's
topic.
loaded. We're gonna
That's a,
we're gonna
that's a
talk
very
about this until the end of the show.
that's a very deep topic. Because I don't want to generalize and say women, a lot of women act masculine, and I don't want to generalize and say a lot of men act feminine. It would be nothing more than generalizing. However, it depends on the type of man that you're dealing with, because we could say in one breath that all men like this, and then you'll find a group of men that don't agree with that. So
Right.
the first thing I'll say is, and I'm a very big fan of listening to different podcasts and things of that nature, because I want to hear what the world is saying, because I'm actually coaching people. So it's important for me to do that. I understand a lot of the things that are said on this topic, and they make sense. You talk about when women were first introduced to the workforce and they had to start earning, so then they respected men less, and so all that stuff, it sounds good. I get it. I do get it. But you have to figure out what type of man that you're addressing, or what. Well, we're talking about men, right? So you have to figure out what type of man you're talking to, because I believe relationships are all about finding the need and meeting it. So if you come across a man and you feel that he is traditionally masculine, and maybe he doesn't feel, he's not the one to sit there and argue with you all the time, or he's not the one for to go back and forth with you, or for you to pick up the check or make a decision without him. You just have to figure out who you're dealing with. And so if I know there's some instances where I don't really like to argue with anyone. So I remember dating, and I'm going back a while because I've been married for 11 years now. But I remember in dating, there was one woman in particular that was very combative to me, and I guess in my mind I might have thought that was masculine, but I don't want to necessarily say that was masculine. Maybe she was just a strong-minded woman, whatever that is. But for me, I felt like I feel like in my home I do want a soft woman. I want my wife is she's from the Bronx, so she's a tough woman, but I don't want to fight you in the house, and I don't want you to be a pusher. I'm not trying to go here, do this, do that. I don't want that either. But at the same time, if I don't argue with that guy over there, I don't want to argue with the woman either. Like it's not something that I associate with my woman, so to speak, at the time. So it really depends on the guy that you're talking to. Some guys, the thing that you may think that men think is masculine, some guys may actually like that. I was watching, I don't know if I was watching In Living Color or something like that, and he was like, I'm it was Steve Harvey, the Hightower or whatever show that was with Regina, and he was like, "Well, I got a new girl, and she does what every man wants in a woman. She says, 'I'll pay,'" and I was like, "I don't know if every man would necessarily want that," but again, that was him saying what he wanted. Now, other men would look at that and say that's masculine. Like,
Right.
You want to pay. I don't mind, you offering or whatever, but that again, don't subscribe to these axioms where you think that this is law and this is how it's supposed to be, because it's really not. And I think actually not being able to decipher that information is really the cause of a lot of people not finding love. Is they're kind of oh, you know what, this sounds right, this is probably what it is, and then they go out into the marketplace and they're wondering why they're bumping their head, is because that's not really that's how it is for some people, but you're trying to apply somebody else's life to you and it doesn't work. This is why I'm in coaching, to be honest with you, because it's not about me saying, sure, I do go over a curriculum where I want you to understand certain things, but ultimately we got to figure out who you are and what you want. And once you figure that out, once you're out dating, you need to be able to evaluate the person in front of you. You can go in with some assumptions, like you can assume, these are not all good assumptions, but you can assume most women want affection. That's not a bad assumption. If you're wrong on that, that's fine. But you can assume most women want affection. You can assume most men want sex. That's not a horrible assumption. But outside of those little tiny assumptions that could be wrong, by the way, you got to be able to, in a dinner, bowling. In my case, my wife and I went to the gun range for our first date. You got to be able to ask the right questions without sounding like you're interviewing them, to figure out, well, what does this person want? And then you have to say, well, I know what they want now. Is that something that I don't mind meeting that need? If is it something that I mind doing to accommodate them? And I also ask, is this something that I can do? But again, I just, again, we can go on with the subject, but don't subscribe to everything that you hear, because it may not apply to you. It just may not be. So, just keep that in mind as you kind of navigate that whole topic. But yeah, it's hard to say what's masculine. I mean, what some men view as masculine versus not masculine.
There's no black and white on that. Because it depends on who you're talking to from the male standpoint and from the female standpoint. I had a guy friend of mine one time, and even you and I have talked about this too. We've talked about approaching men. Now, you have a lot of women who men would deem as masculine, but they will not approach a man. They're like, that's not my job. That's not what I do. That's what men are supposed to do. And it's masculine for me to go and say something to him or, do this, that, or the other. And so I was having a conversation with one of my guy friends, and he was like, no, I prefer a woman to come over to me because I don't know. I don't know. So, and I don't want to offend anyone. So I would prefer that a woman approach me over, vice versa. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's your thing. You know what I
That
mean?
was a good one. I'm glad you brought that up. I you just kind of that was the alley oop right there. I don't believe women should approach men.
I
I
don't
don't believe it.
agree at
But
all. But
here's it's like a little gray area, and I'm gonna clarify it right now. Women always, well, women usually make the first move, but it doesn't mean they approach the man. Like, there's a thin line. Women make the first move, but you don't approach a man. Like, you can there's ways you can subtly let him know that approaching me would be in your best interest, right? But going up to him and approaching him, I think changes the dynamic drastically, and I'm not
yep.
sure many people can survive it. And it's not that you're not a strong person, it's just our society has already trained us what most men are supposed to do and women are supposed to do, and I think subconsciously you're going to reject it in most cases, unless
Mhm.
you're a super strong person. And it's not about how good of a person you are, it's just you're probably going to reject that, because since you were little in Disney, the prince approached the princess. It was never the other way around. So it's going to be
Mhm.
hard for you to reject that culture.
Yeah.
But again, I want women to understand this though. We teach you to go after your goals, get your career, go after all the things that you want. But when it comes to relationships, you're supposed to sit there and hope somebody approaches you. It's very tough for a lot of women who get to a certain age and they want kids, and now they're past that age and they're thinking like, man, I should have done something different.
Yeah.
Yes, you can make the first move, because guys, listen, especially when you see a pretty woman, a lot of guys assume that pretty woman's already taken, and they don't get the courage enough quick enough to say something to that woman to even find out if she's taken. And
Mm.
for a pretty woman to walk by and she's like, man, I'm available to this guy and he's not going to approach you, and it's not that he's not interested, it's just inside of every man is still that 4-year-old boy that's afraid to hear no from his parents, and now he's afraid to approach you in that moment, and now you guys missed an opportunity. Whereas you can kind of, I'm this is old school, wave the handkerchief and drop it and he'll pick up the handkerchief. Now there's a little bit different. You might be in a supermarket and ask him an open-ended question. I don't know what. Again, this is like it's like athletes. You don't know what you're gonna do in the moment, but you have to be ready in that moment to say or do the right thing. And it's not that you're a bad person, but if you say this instead of that, then that interaction it dissipates in that moment. But if you
Yeah.
say this instead of story about how you met, and he's like, yeah, I approached her in the supermarket, and he's not even smart enough to realize that, you'll be the one saying, you idiot, like, you don't remember I asked you the question and then you then asked me for my number, because you made the first move, but you don't approach. I don't want to say you shouldn't, but in my opinion, I don't think women should approach men, but you can send that invitation. It's a subtle invitation. There's so many different ways to do it,
But
but
isn't that all a part of femininity though? Isn't
it
that
is
that's all a part of the femininity that we're talking about?
correct.
The difference between this masculinity and femininity. So
Right.
no, we ain't saying that you need to walk over to old boy in the meat section and be like, what's up? I'm saying,
Look
let
good.
me holler at you real quick. Like, no. Nobody nobody is saying that. But
We all set.
if you over in the paper towel section and you're like, can you reach that for me? You know what I mean? You have initiated some sort of conversation, some sort of attention, some sort of something that now the both of you are focused on each other, even if it's just for that moment. You know what I mean? So that's a part of the femininity. Andre said, what did he say? He said, I believe if women start picking their men, relationships will get better. He said, think about it. Most men pick women, and then women pick from the men that picked them. So
That's one statement I've knew it when, long time ago, but I guess in recent years with the podcasts and all that stuff that are out there, men control access to relationships, women control access to sex. That's a very profound statement. And yes, in our society, men have been tasked to go after the relationship, and women control the access to, you know, the good stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I agree with that. If women had the ability to do that, you know, they'd probably be better off. Especially, you know, I just want to say this because sometimes there's single women out here that feel like it's just not a lot of options. There are so many men that will pass by you or look pass by your page that would be dying to be with you, but you will never know. And that's the sad part. How do you get them? How do you get to a point where you can make that connection? There's so many different conversations about that, but to feel that your results is the reality is not necessarily true. There are tons of men that want you, but how do you bridge that gap? That's the challenge. But there are men that want you. Like you're like, man, nobody has approached me in like a year. You know, I don't. No, that's it's not that they don't want you. We just have to find a way to put you in an environment, not necessarily just physically, but mentally, in an environment where you're inviting, and they know that it's in their best interest to approach you. They know that there's a good chance that this might be in my favor. But if they don't think that it's in their favor, listen, most people are not going, you know, going to what's the most people are not going to a place climb the highest mountain. Most people like to travel the path of least resistance. And so I'm not trying to go talk to this girl if I feel in my heart of hearts that she's about to tell me no. But if I feel like, oh, she smiled at me, oh, it might be a little, you know, okay.
That's the femininity. That's the part that you're supposed to, that if we are interested, because not every woman is interested in being in a relationship, but for those that are, or those who are trying to attract a mate, that's the part of the femininity that you need to exude to be able to just bring him into your area, bring him into your space, and then let things take off from there.
One last thing, even if if you send out that invitation and he doesn't respond, don't let that batter your confidence, because you don't know, he could be married. He could be interested in men. he could be he might have lost a parent today. Like, you have no idea. So don't let the results dictate your confidence level. Like, you're confident. I was listening to Myron Golden, and I think he said confidence, you know, the root word is confide, and is like to trust. Like, your confidence, like, you don't trust yourself. No, trust that you have everything going on for yourself. So don't feel like that result means that should dictate who you are or how good you are. It's just that didn't work out. Keep sending out the invitation. When you're in sales, we know you're not going to just talk to one person and that first person buys. You got to put the funnel out, and at some point you're going to get down to the person that is meant for you, or meant for that business, so to speak. That the perfect customer.
Yeah. Listen, this was great as always. We can only get through like 3 or 4 questions because we just started going off. We still didn't even get through all the questions that we had gotten from before. But this was great, and unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our show. You already know we're going to have to continue. We're just going to continue on. This is actually just going to be the Latoya and Trev show at this point, because we're just going to have to keep having you on, because there are so many times that there's questions that come in, and even I see that you post a lot of them, you know, on your page yourself, and I see people under that are asking or making comments. So there's just too much for us to discuss. So of course, you know, we have to have you back. We have to have you as a regular on, because this is an ongoing conversation. And to everybody that was in the chat today, thank you so much. Everybody was just kind of talking. I didn't get a chance to read all of the comments that were in the chat today. There was a lot going on in there, but thank you guys so much for putting your comments in, asking your questions, and all that you do. Thank you all so much for that. And again, this is all a part about the healing journey, everybody. We're talking about the healing journey. We are going on this healing journey together, and relationships are part of it. Yes, there's a personal healing journey. There's the healing journey for us as a people. And there's, you know, just trying to get back into love and relationships too. And so when we need to do that, we call Coach Trev, because you know what I mean? He's got some answers to some of our questions, and that's why we have him on. So thank you so much, and tell everybody how they can find you.
Again, I'm on I would say the easiest way to find me is Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok is Trevor Trio Scott. Trevor Trio is Treo Scott. Again, social media is probably the easiest way to find me at this point. And I just want to say thank you for having me on. My wife and I talked about you today. I look forward to getting you guys together. But again, I appreciate you all these years now. You know, it's been a couple of years I've been with you on your show. So again, I appreciate you greatly.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And how can we get your book? Because people in the chat are asking how they can find the book.
You can hit me up on social media. I'll give you a couple of different options. You can go on Amazon. I got quite a few, a lot of good reviews on Amazon. But if that's the easy way for you, I know Amazon's the easy thing. You can go there, but just hit me up on social media, Trevor Trio Scott, and we'll get you covered.
Well, thank you so much today. Hopefully, we will have you back soon. In the future, we are definitely going to be talking to some more psychologists about red flags and green flags and yellow flags when it comes to our self relationships and making decisions. We have a bunch of people that are going to be coming on the show very soon. But for tonight, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much again, Trev. We are going to be talking behind the scenes because you are going to have to be a regular on this healing journey. And we love you guys for watching. We love you guys for listening. And God willing, we will be back here next week. Same time, same place, different show. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.